Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to crochet handles for a crocheted bag. So here I am using Lion Brand Yarns Woolies Thick and Quick, a clover hook, I think this is a P 15mm, and 4 stitch markers. These are also by Clover and they're my favorite ones. So let's get started. Here I have a little tiny, we're going to call it a bag for the sake of this video here. Now, I've been working in the round, so my seam has moved over a little bit, as tends to happen when working in the round, but I'm going to say I'm at the top of my bag, I'm ready to make some handles. So, when you're following a pattern for a bag or purse, and it's got crocheted handles, it's probably going to tell you exactly in which stitches to make those handles. But because everyone's seam angles at a slightly different angle, simply because of gauge and tension, you may need to adjust those. So it's always a good idea to go through the pattern and put stitch markers where they tell you to make the handles, so you can make sure that they line up front and back, because you don't want one handle over here and then on the other side you've got another handle over here. That just doesn't look good. So you just want to make sure. Or maybe you're following a pattern that calls for purchased handles and you've decided you'd rather crochet them. Maybe you've created a pattern of your own. For all of these, it's a good idea to know how to make bag handles. So I am going to say that this is our bag. I'm ready to make handles. I've got 4 stitch markers, and these are going to help me figure out the layout of my handles. Now I'm going to just eyeball it. We'll say I want it about the width of my hand. If you're grabbing handles, it's always a good idea to kind of have them at least the width of your knuckles. So I'm going to start putting in stitch markers that are about the width of my hand apart. Now you can see, because of this seam, that the first stitch of the round isn't lined up perfectly with either edge, and that's okay. Assuming this was sealed shut at the bottom, that's what we need to work with. If you don't have it sealed shut at the bottom yet, you can adjust that over to the side, but for now, we'll say it's sort of a standard bag. So then what I can do from here is holding the sides together, or the top pieces, I can mark the ones directly opposite. Just put it right inside the stitch there. And then, eyeballing it, that looks pretty good. But what I want to do from here is I want to count the stitches. I want to count the stitches in between and on either side to make sure it's truly even, because the eyes can be a little deceiving. So let's see here. Between these two, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Between these two, move that loop out of the way here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty good so far. Now let's count the sides. Between these two, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And between these two here, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the join. It's a little easier then to count the stitches, as long as you don't lose your end there. Alright, so I've got, this one's right in that last stitch, so I've got 1, 2, 3. That means we've got trouble. These aren't exactly even. So what I can do, basically they'd be shifted over to this side. If I made them like this, we'd have handles that were a little too much to the left of the bag. So I can start playing with this a little bit. If I move this one in one, and this one in one, then I will have 3 stitches between on both front and back, and on this one I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they match. Now I could have done that instead of moving these two over. I could have moved these two over closer to the side to create less room between these two. How you want to adjust those handles is completely up to you. But let's say we've now got them exactly where we want them, so it's time to start crocheting our handles. What I'm going to do is make that join again. And remember too, to follow the pattern, if you're following a pattern, to follow those directions. This is just sort of making up handles as we go, if you're following a bag pattern where you want to create your own. So I'm going to chain 1, and right now I've just been working in single crochet. So I'm going to single crochet in each stitch until I get to the marked one. Let me pull up some more yarn here. There we go. So I'll just work 1 single crochet. And again, it could be any stitch, it could be any stitch pattern. Generally with handles you want the smaller stitches because they're going to stretch less. Okay, now I've come to my marked stitch. There's two ways you can handle this. You can work into the marked stitch, or you can stop working at the marked stitch. Completely up to you, whatever you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and work our last stitch for now in the marked stitch. Now, this is where I need to decide how long I want my handles to be. Obviously, the more you chain, the longer the handle. And generally speaking, as long as you make the two handles the same length, it doesn't really matter. It's completely a matter of personal preference. Again, the more stitches you have, the more opportunity you have for stretching. But that can be solved by lining the handles with a little bit of ribbon or some fabric if you were lining the bag, or just making the handle a little bit shorter than you like and figuring it'll stretch a bit. So let's go ahead and say we want some relatively short handles. Let's make them maybe 10 stitches long. Actually, for the sake of time, let's go with 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Just a nice little handle here for our little bag. Maybe this is a little girl's purse. So now what I'm going to do to create the opening is I'm going to skip those stitches in between our stitch markers and single crochet again in this next marked stitch here. Stitch marker's getting a little bit in the way, but let's work around it for now. There we go, 1. Then I'm going to single crochet, or again, whatever stitch you're working in, to the next stitch marker here. Almost there. Alright, and here I am at my 3rd stitch marker. So just as before, I'm going to single crochet right in that marked stitch. Pull up a little more yarn. Then remember, I chained 5, so I'm going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that chain 5 will be the basis for the actual handle itself. Then I'll skip all the ones until I come to the next stitch marker. Pull that out of the way a bit. Single crochet in the stitch with that stitch marker, and then finish off in the remaining stitches. In this case, it's just 1 because of where our seam is. And then I will slip stitch to join. Now you've got some decisions to make. You could stop here. If this is, again, if this was going to be just like a little girl's purse where she wasn't going to be putting anything very heavy in it, these chain stitch handles would probably be okay, especially in this nice thick yarn. But if it's a purse where you're actually going to use it, put a wallet in it, anything heavy, you're going to want a little bit thicker, stronger handle. So what you can do from here is simply keep working around. Chain 1, and then work in each stitch until you get to the chains. And at this point, of course, the stitch markers could come out. I'm just leaving them for the sake of time. Okay, and here we are at the chains. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work a stitch in each chain. You can go into the back loop, the front loop, under both loops, whatever you like to give yourself the look you like. It's completely up to you. If you knew this was going to be your last additional round, you could even use slip stitch if you didn't want to add much bulk, but you just wanted to add a little bit of extra strength. Again, this is the fun of crochet. You can add your own personal touches to whatever you make. Pick a pattern that calls for one type of handles and make a different type. Make it your own. Working into chain is never the fun part, but we get really good handles this way. So, almost there. There we are. We worked our way across the chain, and then I would just go back to working in the regular stitches around. I think you've got the idea. If I wanted an even thicker handle, I could keep going again, do another row. Especially if I were using thinner yarn, I almost certainly would. With this nice bulky stuff, you don't need to so much. But that certainly gives you the idea. You can see we've got a nice, relatively thick handle here. Even fits my hand pretty well, even though we moved those stitch markers in a bit. I'll take the stitch markers out. Of course, I didn't finish that last round. So you can see this is just the chain, relatively flimsy. But we did another row, gave us a nice little handle for our little crocheted bag. And so when you're making crochet handles, there's several different methods, but this is possibly one of the easiest, certainly. You can add it to just about any bag. You want to finish it the end of the pattern for the bag itself, and then you can crochet on a handle however you like, and whatever length straps you like, and that way you don't have to worry about running to the store to buy custom straps for your bag. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, If you do, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Thanks so much for watching.